Good evening, everyone. My apologies for pushing it down to the wire. This regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is officially called to order on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, and the time is now 7:03 p.m. Board of Trustees present are Trustee Adams, Trustee Correa, Trustee Durant, Trustee Jensen, Trustee Newhouse, and Trustee McDaniel. I would like to ask everyone to turn off and silence their cell phones or any electronic devices. Thank you. At this time, Trustee and Board Equity Committee Lead Natasha McDaniel will begin the meeting by reading the Spring ISD Equity Statement.
Spring Independent School District strongly believes in educational and racial equity as fundamental aspects of its core mission and purpose, embodied through any program, practice, decision, or action that affects all students, with a strategic focus on those choices and policies that most strongly impact marginalized students. We believe all students, regardless of their ability, cognitive, physical, or social emotional, ethnicity, language, race, religion, gender identity, and status, should have equitable access to opportunities, resources, support systems, and educational rigor in order to maximize their academic success and social emotional well-being. We believe every Spring Independent School District student is valuable and possesses individual strengths and characteristics that make our district a great place to learn and grow. Moreover, we seek to act on that belief, instituting policies and practices that value diversity, committing ourselves as a district to continued growth and development, and working to support the success of every student in all that we do.
Thank you, Trustee McDaniel. Tonight's presentation of colors will be led by the Decaney Wildcat NJROTC Battalion. The pledges will be led by the Battalion Commanding Officer Cadet Commander Gabrielle Lopez. The Color Guard Commander carrying the U.S. flag is Cadet Master Chief Petty Officer Brody Nix. Carrying the Texas flag is Cadet Jasmine Lazada. The left rifle is Cadet Christopher Zatino. The right rifle is Cadet Petty Officer William Gillian. The Decaney Wildcat NJRTC Battalion is led by Chief Petty Officer Victor Adams and Chief Petty Officer Robert Dunn. At this time, will everyone please rise? Please remain standing. At this time, I ask that those present please quietly observe a moment of silence in your own way. Thank you. You may be seated. Our next item this evening is the superintendent remarks. So we will now hear from our superintendent of schools, Dr. Lapita Inahosa.
So this is why Spring ISD exists, for our children of the sky. Special thanks to our communications department for putting this together and really capturing our children, our students that we serve every single day. This is our why. I do want to also just do special shout out. It was 2 weekends ago, 2 Fridays ago, maybe. 2 Fridays ago, our chief of police, Chief Rodriguez, put together the very first inaugural Spring ISD Police Women Empowerment and Leadership Summit. It's the first of its kind in this area, and Mr. Ant and I had the opportunity to attend. We weren't able to stay for the entire conference, but it was so powerful to see, number one, chiefs of police. We met the chief of police from San Jac, several chiefs of police that were all women, and all women officers from across Region 4. We had officers, female officers from Conroe, from Aldine, just from across the area, and two amazing keynote speakers that really talked about women in leadership and what does that take. So it was an amazing opportunity for us to be able to participate and also to be able to recognize our female officers who are leaders within our own police department. Just a big reminder, I know I said it once, it starts tomorrow, school starts tomorrow. So I know we're all excited, last minute getting ready. I know the students that are here are ready and have their clothes laid out, right? Everything's ready to go. So just super excited, and just some quick reminders. So no reminders, there we go. I don't know what happened, but we've got some quick reminders just for tomorrow. We do have our very first day of school, and just celebrating that Spring ISD is piloting a pre-K-3 program at Link Elementary, McNabb Elementary, as well as Winship Elementary. So 3-year-olds will be coming to school for the very first time in Spring ISD. That's exciting. Lots of things kicking off tomorrow. We also have our very first Parent Advisory Committee meeting coming up next week on August 29th. We do have a quick holiday, so we work really hard for 2 weeks and we get to breathe and calm down and rest, and then we are back. And also, tomorrow's a big day. We want to make sure all of our students come back to school. So if any of you see kiddos that are at home, young people that are at home, make sure and let them know it's important that they come back. If they need assistance, we can provide that assistance. But we're already reserving September 21, that's a Saturday, where we will be out in our community meeting with families, meeting with students to make sure that we can accommodate every single student here in Spring ISD. So super excited to kick off our new school year, Mr. Ant. Thank you very much. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Next, I'd like to ask if any of the trustees would like to make any remarks at this time.
Madam President, I'd just like to do a big shout out for a Spring High School graduate who is a 2024 Olympian, Alicia Johnson. She performed last week and represented Spring High School. So let's give her a big round of applause. Shout out. She was she was amazing in her performance, and I feel like later on we will do a recognition for her before the year is out. But a big shout out to her and her family for representing Spring. We knew she could do it because she was a state winner when she was at Spring. For 4 years, she won the state for Spring in her event in the hurdles. So we will recognize her at a later date, but congratulations to her and her family.
Thank you, Trustee Newhouse. And you were fortunate enough to be present there in the house, so.
3 rows up.
We missed you on Tuesday, but what an honor to be able to be there. Trustee Adams.
I had the opportunity last week to attend a forum hosted by the Greater Houston Partnership, and their focus was on early childhood education. There were representatives from Baker Ripley, the United Way was there, Good Reason Houston was also there. They did a panel discussion on issues around early childhood education and pre-K. Talked about a legislative agenda. I provided some information to Dr. Hinojosa about connecting with their Director of Education. I know we have a presence with our own Chamber of Commerce, but engaging with the Greater Houston Partnership, I think, would only be to the good.
Thank you, Trustee Adams. Dr. Jensen?
I just wanted to share a couple of my political outreach efforts this summer. If you don't know about how a school board runs, we are a unique thing in Texas politics. We rule as a body, not as individuals. And our president is our spokesperson. So when I go to these things, I always do a disclaimer that I'm speaking for myself. I am not speaking for the Board of Trustees or for Spring ISD. However, I was at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and the speaker, who is somebody who goes and influences legislators, but his point was he really wants accountability in education. And as he was going on, I just couldn't stand it. I had to raise my hand. And I made the point that what I'm really afraid of with the talk about vouchers is what's going to happen to those kids. Because there is no accountability. There is no accountability that they are getting a teacher who actually knows the subject matter that they say they're teaching. You may have a parent who says, I'm going to teach my child Algebra 1 and chemistry and U.S. history, and we don't know if that person knows Algebra 1, chemistry, and history. And teachers in the public school system go through a certification process. And if they are not certified teachers, we have them in the process of certification and with proper professional development in our district. Another thing I'm very worried about, we just saw a presentation about the police. We have all kinds of things to try to keep our kids safe. Everything from the way the schools are being modified with our bond to the police presence we have on the schools. We have maintenance people who make sure that if the air is warm in the winter and cool in the summer, they make sure that there is not mold in the air. They make sure that if they have to use any pesticides around, that they're safe around people. We don't know the homes that these kids are being, or schools, private schools, where they're being taught, if they're safe as well. Another thing is we really take a lot of effort, time, money. Our whole focus is to teach the subject matter, and including the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, the TEKS, because there are many, many people who are experts in these subject areas, and they have said at first grade a student should be able to do this. At fifth grade, a student should be able to do that. There are standards at every grade and every subject area, and we don't know that those voucher kids or the private schools are doing that. So a simple way would be just to make sure that they take the STAR test as well. And let's really have accountability. If we're going to have accountability for public schools, let's have it for private schools and for homeschoolers who decide to take Texas state taxpayer money. Okay, so that was my Chamber of Commerce meeting. And then I was asked to join a panel of, and this is a very conservative group that is very concerned about freedom, and they are the Citizens Defending Freedom. And I want to compliment the organizers of this group because it turns out I'm the only person who showed up who was not a member of their group. And they were very insistent that everybody had to be polite and we had to speak politely to each other. There wouldn't be no outbursts tolerated, and they really did it. So it was really a very interesting, educational, I think, good meeting. So anyway, that's what I was doing this summer, is advocating.
I'd like to say, I feel like I'm speaking for the whole board that we're supposed to be off this summer, right? And I want to thank Dr. Jensen for getting out there and continuing to once again use her free time to advocate for our students and the community here in Spring ISD. So thank you, Dr. Jensen. That kind of segues me into a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. First of all, I'd like to thank the FACE department. They've also been extremely busy this summer, especially in light of the hurricane. They hosted not one, not two, but 3 relief distributions for our families. They gave up their free Fridays and Sundays to serve our families. They provided cases of water, hot meals, cleaning supplies, non-perishable items for our family. And they weren't off brand. I mean, it was Tide and Dawn and, name brand items that they had. And so I want to thank our partnerships with FACE. They were able to do that because of Representative Sophronia Thompson, as well as Ms. Carroll likes to say, our forever Mayor Sylvester Turner. We were able to get a lot of those goods out to our families. I was able to attend, I think, 2 of the 3 events, and I was just so impressed with how FACE organized that and how we were really able to help our families. Some of our families, I think in the Burchett and Bailey area, went over 10 days without power. I was talking to one of the parents and said even when her power came back up, it was some kind of surge and blew out their appliances, when it came back up. And so I'm so proud of FACE and for our administration for coming together so quickly and getting some real relief out there to our families, standing out there in that hot sun. I think at one of them, Dr. Hinojosa, we had over 600 vehicles. When I got to Burchett, the line was out of the building, around the Circle Drive that's there, all the way out to Cypress Woods, and then all the way down past the stadium. People in line to get the relief that our family so much needed and deserved. So I didn't see if Miss Carroll was here, if she could stand up, and any of her staff that participated in that. Is she here? All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate your hard work and FACE is under the leadership of James Struhart. So thank you. Another person I want to recognize is Chief Rodrigue. As Dr. Hinojosa indicated, we were able to attend the inaugural Women's Summit for police officers. And at one time, women weren't able to join the force. And I asked him what inspired him to do that event, and it's his 3 daughters as he thought about their future. And I think we had over, was it 20? Right, representing how many agencies? Over 20 agencies. Great job, great job. Thank you, Chief Rodrigue. And lastly, Trustee Adams and I had the honor to attend a leadership summit along with Dr. Hinojosa with Halsworth. It was an excellent experience, and it got me really motivated and excited, and so I can't wait to share what we learned with the board. We are having a 2-day summit, just us, with administration. And so I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys some of the things that we learned and putting it in place as we continue to strive to be the best that we can be for our community. So thank you, everyone. Anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? So we'll now continue then with tonight's agenda. Our next item are recognitions. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize our Chief of Communications, Shane Struhart, and ask the board to join me in the horseshoe.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Hinojosa, administration, and audience. We begin tonight's recognitions with a spotlight honoring the work of students who took part in Spring ISD's second Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month program. Students from across the district submitted entries, and winning projects were featured during a special program on May 29th, my birthday, by the way, where students had an opportunity to present and be honored for their work. You may have seen, I saw some of the display outside with some of their work. The overall theme this year was Asian American and Pacific Islander in the arts. And the contest recognized and encouraged writing, art, and oratory skills in students. The projects highlighted the incredible diversity that is the hallmark of our vibrant community here in Spring ISD. A big shout out to all the students, teachers, and staff who participated, including campus sponsors and Samba. I think Samba, you back there somewhere? Samba, yeah. We're honored to have with us tonight several of the first place winners from this year's contest. So students, please come forward as I call your names. Okay, these are the first place students in the art category individual. Our first student in the kinder through second grade from Thompson Elementary, Sander Manalo. In grades 3 through 5, from Winship Elementary, and no stranger to the school board, Abigail John. Abigail. Right? So, Madam President, Abigail just finished her second book. She just published her second book. Another round for Abigail. That's right. In grades 6 through 8, from Bailey Middle School, Riley LaVille. And in grades 9 through 12, from Spring High School, Ashley Bonilla. Bonilla or Bonilla? All right. All right, moving on to the first place winners from the writing group. We have one group tonight from Hirsch Elementary in grades 3 through 5. Jay Moreno. Jay, are you here? Unable to join Jay tonight are her partners Alex and Brendan. And finally, our first place winners in the writing individual group is the kids from 3 through 5, grades 3 through 5, from Northgate Crossing, Adhana Vinath. And in grades 9 through 12, from Spring High School, Juarez Cienega. All right, are there any parents tonight of these students? Would you mind standing to be recognized? Madam President, can we take a photo?
I'd like to say on behalf of the board, congratulations, and we just love an opportunity to continue to see our scholars shine. And so we're gonna take a picture, and parents, you're welcome to get a snapshot as well if you'd like to come closer.
And Samba, can we get you in this photo? Students, can you jump stand right in front of our board of trustees right here? Facing with me. Parents, up to you a little bit closer if you want. Everyone look at the big camera first.
Here we go. Right here. On 3, 1, 2, and 3. Hang on. Let's do one more, guys. Here we go. On 3, 1, 2, and 3.
All right, let's hold still so parents can get their shot. Somebody's little sister.
That's it. We have one more recognition, yes. Thank you, students.
Great job, guys, great job.
Next, we're recognizing two Spring ISD high schools that have been named to the Educational Results Partnership's annual honor roll list. These two distinguished campuses are Spring Early College Academy and Robertson Middle School. Woo! The Honor Roll, now in its 9th year, recognizes top schools that have outperformed their peers in closing achievement gaps, particularly among higher poverty and historically disadvantaged students' populations. This year, 835 schools in Texas made the Honor Roll, or about 12% of all eligible schools in the state. Results are based on data of students' outcomes on the STAR exam from 2019 to 2023. It is the only school recognition program presented in partnership with state and local business leaders, using solely objective student achievement data as the criteria for recognition. And at this time, we'd like to welcome Spring Early College Principal Christine Guidry. And Robertson Middle School Principal Cecilia Brumsey to be recognized.
probably couldn't get me because I was in. The stop loss. Okay. At this time, Ms. Westbrooks, did you have an item you wanted to bring up on the agenda so our guests wouldn't be here with us on?
Yes, ma'am. I was going to move it to the beginning of the financial services items. Did you want to go ahead and move it up now to now?
Up to
Yes.
you. You want to do it now?
May I ask, just for the record, Madam President, may I point out that we have no speakers tonight for public participation and no speakers tonight for agenda participation?
Okay. So,
And with that, you may continue with Ms. Westbrook's items.
so just for the record, we have no speakers signed up this evening on public or agenda participation.
Correct. We will
Thank
have
you.
one speaker for the tax rate public hearing, but we will get to that when the time
Later
comes.
on in the agenda, yeah, absolutely. So at this time, I'll turn it over, without any objection from any board members, to moving the item up sooner in the agenda. No objections. I'll turn it over to Ms. Westbrooks.
Thank you, President Durant, Dr. Hinojosa, and members of the board. On page 33 of your binders, you have a copy of the supporting documentation for the request for proposal related to the stop-loss insurance that, as you know, is a part of our self-funded medical insurance plan. And we do have with us this evening Ms. Betty Gwynn from Gallagher, the district's third-party administrator for the self-funded health plan, and she's going to walk us through just what this is and what we're asking the board to approve, and then, of course, give you an opportunity to ask any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you all for having us this evening and to talk about this very important topic related to the health insurance. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
As you know, the medical plan just went out to bid for the larger third-party administrator, which was moved to Blue Cross effective 9/1. So along with that, the second part of it is getting the reinsurance secured. As a health plan, we're a self-insured health plan, but we do have stop-loss reinsurance to protect us against any large claims. We worked with your procurement team and we went out to bid for the stop-loss reinsurance, and what you are looking at of the stop-loss summary are the finalists who did provide reinsurance quotes for us, and the decision and the recommendation is to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield, who is the medical TPA, but they are also the stop-loss carrier that we're recommending, to go with a $325,000 individual stop-loss deductible under the plan for a total annualized premiums of $1.664477 in premiums for stop-loss reinsurance. And this is to go into effect on September 1st. As I go from left to right, we look at the different carriers. Currently, we are with Granular, is the stop-loss reinsurance carrier today, and we will be moving to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas with a $325,000 specific stop-loss deductible. That specific stop-loss deductible means for each individual. Anyone who has claims that are exceeding $325,000, Spring will be carrying the risk for that first $325,000 per individual, and anything above that amount is then when the reinsurance carrier will reimburse us for any claims in excess of $325,000. The contract terms it shows is 2412, which is the richest contract that you can purchase out there, meaning it will cover claims from the previous 24 months of paid claims history to the current, meaning September 1st through that next 12-month period of time. So that's your 24 months that the claims are incurred, and then they're paid during the current 12-month period starting on September 1st. So as long as they're incurred in that 24 months and paid in that 12 months, then they will be part of this new contract that we're entering into. The stop-loss premiums, as you can see, we are currently paying $1.486524 in premiums for the stop-loss reinsurance, and we had other bids and quotes that ranged anywhere from $3.6 million down to the $1.664477 million. The way that we were able to negotiate those down, well, we looked at a couple different things. We looked at what it would be for the district to increase our stop loss deductible from 325 to 350 or 375. We had our actuarials run many different analysis, and we call it a Monte Carlo stimulation to determine how many claimants it would take in order for it to make sense to increase that stop loss deductible. And what we found out, it was, as our underwriters would say, it was a push. It would be the same thing if we were to increase our deductible versus keeping it where we have it today at the 325, paying those premiums as well. So the recommendation at this point is to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield for the stop loss reinsurance at a premium of $1,664,477. Does anyone have any questions?
All right.
I don't know if this is a question for you. Did Granular bid on this? No.
They did not.
Are we surprised by that? I mean, is that?
We are not.
Okay. And then I guess the other question, and I'm going to try and phrase this properly, but you talked about the 2412 contract term. And so maybe this is Ms. Westbrook's question. Are we finished with reimbursements or payments for any claims that happen under Granular's contract?
No. So that 24 period is going to take into consideration any claims that have been paid prior to 9/1. So that would include any large claims that are going to be paid out that have already been incurred under this current plan. Okay, so those are what we call run-out claims.
Okay.
Because there's typically a claim lag.
Right.
And this 2412 contract will take into consideration any claims that were incurred prior to this upcoming 9/1 will be considered under this current stop loss arrangement.
Excellent. And then my last question, how common is a claim that exceeds our deductible? How often does that happen?
Good question.
So last year you had 10 or 12, I believe it was 10 claimants that exceeded $325,000. No, excuse me, you had 12 that exceeded 325. You had 10 that exceeded 350 and 8 that exceeded 375,000. So what we typically see is there's a rule based on per thousand numbers of participants, and you guys are running about what we would consider standard. Now, we do have one that I will make a call out. There is what we have a laser, okay? A laser where you see that it says in the fine print, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas with a laser. So there are stop loss deductible of $325,000, but there's one individual that they are lasering out with a higher stop loss deductible at $1.5 million. Okay, so what happens is the carriers are going to, all of your reinsurance carriers are going to look at your stop loss claims history, your ongoing claimants, and they're going to determine what risk they are willing to assume. Okay, so when we assume that laser, because we have that higher deductible, that's going to bring our premiums down, but our exposure will be higher. So if we would have said we don't want the laser, our premiums just would have been $1.5 million higher. Okay, to take that into consideration. So that person may not hit that you take the risk because they may not hit that $1.5 million of claims. This was a person who has very expensive medications, and they see it as an ongoing condition. But now with our new program that we have, we're going to be doing a lot more concentration on the management of not only pharmacy drugs, but our large claimants as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question. All right. All right, we don't see any other questions at this time. So I'd now like to entertain a motion from the Board of Trustees to award the contract for stop loss insurance to the provider recommended by administration.
President Durant, I move that the Board of Trustees award a contract for stop loss insurance to the provider recommended by the administration.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee McDaniel and seconded by Trustee Adams that the Board of Trustees award the contract for stop loss insurance to the provider recommended by administration. Do I have any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Maybe at this time, why don't we take a quick break? I'm going to go ahead and call for a break at this time. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and reconvene tonight's meeting. For the record, I'd like for everyone to keep Trustee Hodges in your thoughts and prayers. She is in the ER with her mom. Okay, so our next item is a public hearing for the proposed 2024 tax rate. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Westbrooks.
Thank you, President Durant. This evening, we're going to discuss the proposed tax rate for the 2024 tax year, which will fund the 2024-2025 budget that was approved and adopted by our board on June 11th. So as a reminder, the tax rate is broken into two parts. There's the maintenance and operations portion of the tax rate that supports the general fund budget, and the interest and sinking portion of the tax rate that supports the debt service budget. This evening, we're seeking the board's approval on a total tax rate of 1.1569, which is broken into those two parts that I just mentioned. The general fund proposed tax rate is 0.7169, and the debt service proposed tax rate is 0.44, again for that total of 1.1569. There's a few more things that I want to make sure that I explain before seeking input from the public hearing and also before seeking the board's vote. First off, there's three different rates that we're talking about related to the maintenance and operations portion of the tax rate. There's the no new revenue tax rate, which is just that tax rate that says, how do we raise about the same amount of funds with the tax rate that we had, or excuse me, the same amount of funds with the new property values. So what does that tax rate need to be in order to raise the same amount of taxes as we raised the previous year? So that's the no new tax rate. And that rate is 0.63169. So when we're comparing the proposed tax rate to the no new tax rate, because the proposed rate is higher than the no new tax rate, it requires the board to approve the tax rate with the supermajority. 60% of the board members has to approve the tax rate in order for it to pass, and that would be 5 out of 7 of our board members. Then the next rate I wanted to speak on is the voter approved tax rate, which is the highest tax rate that the district can adopt without having an election. The voter approved tax rate is made up of the maximum compressed rate, those 5, let's call them free golden pennies that we can levy at the local level. And so that is the voter approved tax rate, and that is 0.6669. Because the proposed rate of 0.7169 is higher than the voter approved tax rate, if the board approves this rate with the supermajority that's necessary, then it would require the board to order a voter approved tax rate election, which is a vader. So I wanted to make sure that I walked through the different tax rates that we're discussing and what each one of those tax rates mean for the district. So I'll go back to the beginning now and say that the proposed tax rate, and this item is on page 15, is the board agenda summary, my apologies, and the tax rate ordinance and resolution begins on page 16.
Did everyone have it, or we're still looking for it? It's not in mine.
Ms. Westbrooks, while we're looking,
Yes,
will you repeat again for me the voter-approved tax rate without election using the golden pennies?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain that again one more time.
Yes, ma'am. So the
Ms.
voter.
Westbrooks, before you start again, we're gonna get ourselves together and then
Okay.
start all over with the explanation. We wanna make sure we're on
Okay,
the page with you.
No, I think I was the problem. You can keep going.
okay. Would you like for me to start from the beginning with the no new tax
No,
rate?
I'm
or-
in the work session binder. It's me.
Okay, I'm with you.
Keep going.
To Ms. Newhouse's, she wanted to go over the voter approved tax rate again.
Go.
And so the voter approved tax rate is the maximum compressed rate that we receive from the Texas Education Agency, and that's based upon the value growth. Anytime that rate is increased, not the rate, the values are increased by 2.5% or more, then our tax rate is compressed. That's the maximum compressed rate. So it's that rate plus the 5 free golden pennies that we're able to levy with just our local board's approval. And that's what makes up the voter approved tax rate. So we can't go any higher than that 0.6669 without a Vader. If there are no additional questions, then as at the beginning, the proposed tax rate is 0.7169 for maintenance and operations and 0.44 for interest and sinking, the INS, for a total of 1.1569.
Trustee Newhouse, you have your light on. Did you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there anyone signed up? Okay. Mr. Binkley, did anyone sign up for the hearing?
Yes, Madam President, we have one community member who has signed up for the public hearing tonight. Mr. Paul Chubinski is here to speak regarding the tax item. And so I am realizing, I don't know that we have ever needed our caveats that we normally read for a public hearing, so we will utilize the same ones we use for agenda participation. So I will read this very quickly and then you'll be invited to speak. The board invites interested citizens to address the board regarding the tax rate item on tonight's agenda, but not allegations concerning the character or capability of any board member, staff member, citizen, or student of the district. The board will listen and will not interrupt unless the person addressing the board infringes on the guidelines as stated previously or exceeds the time limit authorized for the presentation. In this case, you will have 3 minutes to present. Mr. Sheffer will keep time, which will be displayed on the monitors. The board will not debate nor respond to any question during public hearing. The board will seriously consider your input when addressing this item on tonight's agenda. Also, according to law, it is a criminal offense for a person to obstruct, prevent, interfere with, or disrupt a lawfully called meeting through physical action or verbal utterance. Citizens are requested to supplement any oral address to the board with a written summary of their presentation and any recommendations they may wish to suggest. Thank you for your concern regarding our school district, and we will hear you now. Mr. Chubinski, you may come to the podium.
Good evening. I'm Paul Chubinski, a Spring AFT building rep at Dekaney High School and the secretary of the organizing committee for Spring AFT Local 6626. On behalf of the members of Spring AFT, we support the recently proposed tax rate and putting it on the November 5th ballot, so we expect that the various research, discussion, and planning that has gone into it will result in a vote in favor of the Vader come November. However, we are already looking forward to refining policy come the next academic year. Why? Because this board has determined that it will be able to use some of the Vader revenue to reduce its budget deficit to around $1 million. During the 2025 to 2026 budgeting process after this year, we can thus expect the opportunity for this board to eliminate its debt, and before that point, we should come to terms with how this currently proposed Vader and the 2% raise proposed for all staff, although good, will still not be enough to keep pace with the cost of benefits and inflation. However, the prospect of eliminating our debt will put this board and this district in a position to become more competitive with surrounding districts, more equitable, and more inclusive. We therefore believe that the board should devote subsequent meeting time to make it explicit that the additional raise dedicated to experienced staff with 3 or more years of experience will be used to support various staff with teaching certificates, librarians, specialists, coaches, interventionists, and coordinators. We believe that this pluralistic policy should be made explicit and planned for during the first year of revenue because these positions impact students the most. By crafting policy to make this possible, this board and local voters could thus have a great impact on students, and that is what we want.
We have no other speakers tonight.
So as there are no additional speakers, we can move forward with tonight's agenda. Will the board is considering the approval of the 2024 tax rate. So I will move forward with the motion.
Madam President, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $1.1569, which is effectively a 13.49% increase in the tax rate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Adams and seconded by trustee Newhouse that the board approve property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 1.15969, which is effectively a 13.49% increase in the tax rate. Is there any questions or discussion?
I just would like to make the point that we would not be having to do this if the Texas legislature were taking their responsibility, which is in the Texas Constitution, to support public education, if they did their job.
I want to piggyback on that. I think that what we're asking of our taxpayers is something that we shouldn't have to ask, but we do need to make decisions in this district based on what's best for our students. And so we sometimes have to make tough decisions. This is one of them, but I think we're up for it.
Trustee Newhouse?
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote.
Madam President, prior to the vote, will you please reread the motion that's on the table? I just want to make sure it's very clear for the record.
Thank you. I move that it has been moved that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.1569, which is effectively a 13.49% increase in the tax rate. All right, call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks. You may continue with your next item.
Thank you, President Durant and members of the board. With the approval of the tax rate that was proposed, the 0.7169, as mentioned earlier, the tax rate is higher than the voter-approved tax rate. So our next item of business is to seek the board's approval. Do I have the clicker? Yes. Thank you. Is to seek the board's approval to now place the voter-approved approval tax rate election, the VATER, on the November 5th election ballot so that our Spring ISD community has an opportunity to decide on the VATER. And so this information was shared with our board and with our community on Thursday evening, so I'll go through it fairly quickly. Of course, we know what VATER stands for now, the voter approval tax rate election, and that it impacts the maintenance and operations portion of the tax rate. The need for the Vader, as was mentioned in the discussion with the property tax rate approval, is the lack of state funding, the continued inflationary cost pressure, and then, of course, the need to return to financial stability. The statutory requirements have now all been met. The adoption of the district's general fund and debt service budgets, which happened in June, the selection of the efficiency auditor, the tax rate has been proposed and approved. The certified value estimates have been received. The maximum compressed rate has been received from TEA. And as mentioned earlier, the proposed tax rate was published in the Houston Chronicle on August 3rd. The revenue generated if the Vader were to be successful is a total of 5 cents. And 3 of those 5 cents is golden pennies, which those 3 would generate $388.56 per weighted average daily attendance. The 2 copper pennies would generate an additional $98.56 per weighted average daily attendance. The total estimated revenue, based on all of the information that's available to us at this time, is just over $20 million, which would be an additional $586.93 per student. That estimated revenue is made up of 2 components: the local component, which is $9.3 million, and then the state additional revenue would be that $10.7 million. The homeowners impact, again, based on the estimated values received on July 25th, would be a total of about $88 per year, which is about $7 per month. And as mentioned earlier, any homeowners that are receiving a homestead exemption for disability or they're age 65 or older will not see an increase above their frozen tax ceiling as a result of the voter approved tax rate election. The revenue generated if the Vader were to be approved by the voters would balance the district's budget, will bring the deficit below $1 million, which is very close to balance, and then provide those compensation increases, 2% general pay increase for all staff. The general pay increase amount for teachers is $1,350, with those targeted equity adjustments for those teachers that have 3 to 24 years of experience. The average teacher raise with the general pay increase plus those equity adjustments would be about 5%. This is just a look back at the comparison of Spring ISD salaries, starting salaries with our surrounding districts. And as noted, the starting salary would be increased from $60,500 to $61,500, but our concentration and our focus has been on those teachers with more years of experience. So as you see here, there's an opportunity to get much more competitive with our teacher salaries as they're compared to the current market. The timeline, we've already checked off number 1. We're here this evening with number 2, and then the efficiency audit results will be presented to the board at the September board meeting. And of course, we know the November election day is November 5th. This is just a quick look back at the results of the community survey that was conducted back in April and was presented by Basilisa and Associates at the board meeting in April. And with an informed information of how the revenue is generated, how the revenue, if approved, would be spent, our informed voters that responded to the survey, there was 59% that said they would vote for the Vader and 38% that said they would vote against, and then we still had 3% that were unsure. So again, what we're seeking this evening is the board's approval to place the Vader on the November 5th election ballot so that our Spring ISD community has an opportunity to make a decision on the Vader. So with that, we are asking the board to order the election for the November 5th, 2024 national election.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks. I'm going to ask the body to put a motion on the floor, and then we'll follow that with discussion. So I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the order calling for a voter approval tax rate special election.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Jensen and seconded by trustee Correa that the Board of Trustees approve the order calling for a voter-approved tax rate special election. Is there any discussion? Trustee Correa.
Ms. Westbrooks, or anyone who can answer, of our surrounding, the districts that are surrounding us, how many of our surrounding districts have already passed a Vader or are potentially looking at one? Do we know?
That's an excellent question, and I would rather get that information and make sure that I'm giving you completely accurate information. I know that several districts, including Fort Bend ISD, Pearland ISD, they had voter approval tax rate elections last year. There were several last year. As far as this cycle goes, I do believe that A-Leaf ISD is still moving forward with their Vader. I know one district that is not. So I'll compile that list and make sure that we get that sent out to you so you have a complete and accurate list.
Ms. Westbrook, of the ones that you just mentioned, do you know whether or not they were successful?
Yes, the overwhelming majority of the Vaders that were on the November 2023 election ballot were successful.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not done.
No, yeah. No, I was just gonna clarify my reasoning for asking for that is because in the same way that we got stuck a couple of years ago with doing the compensation increases, we did it and someone else does it and someone else does it. So the question is, if we pass this Vader, forward thinking, how is that gonna place us in competition with the rest of our districts? Because if they've already passed their Vader, then it kind of puts us in a better place. But if they haven't, then, how do we reconcile that, going forward?
And so the Vaders that were passed in November of 2023, they made compensation decisions in their 23-24 budget. And so that data would have been included in the market analysis that we did that we saw on the slide earlier. And so, of course, the market does continue to move. But what we saw is on this slide, when we were comparing ourselves to the market at that time, the compensation increase that we're proposing actually put us quite a bit ahead of the market. So what that does is that buys us a little bit of time before the market catches back up with us. But it is absolutely a continuously moving target.
I just wanted to, once again, make the point that we are not raising the taxes. We are asking the voters to decide whether we can raise the taxes.
Mr. Adams?
So I also think it's important to recognize that we're here because of the results of an election. And as our voters engage, we have to remember to keep that same energy as these upcoming legislative elections come, as that currently the state doesn't seem to be feeling any pressure to adequately fund public schools. And that's a function of election outcomes. That's what they do. They look at what happened with the elections, and they have decided that there's no downside to underfunding public education. And so we have to mobilize our community to make them see that there's a very definite downside to not honoring their constitutional obligation as it relates to funding public education.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. So I struggle heavily with this. I know a lot of it is from the lack of support from our legislators for public education. But it's also hard to ask our taxpayers to increase taxes because the officials that we elected are not supporting the future of our students in this community. So it's a tough decision to make. It's one that I'm struggling with. But I do believe that I don't know if this is just for myself, not the body, if I am comfortable sitting here voting against it and not allowing the community to make that decision for us. So, any other comments? At this time, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks. You're not done. You can continue with your items.
I am done.
Was that
We
your
moved,
last one?
yes, ma'am, we moved
Oh,
the
because we
one
moved
item
it.
up.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. We moved it up. Well, thank you, Ms. Westbrooks, for your items this evening. We already did that stop loss. Our next item is the discussion of the possible renaming of the Spring ISD Family and Community Engagement Center. And that item was brought forward by Trustee Hodges with my support. Unfortunately, she wasn't here tonight, but she did prepare a statement for us that I'm going to go ahead and read. So it says, good evening, community staff and board members. I'd like to recommend that we name the Spring Independent School District's Family and Community Engagement Center in honor of the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. This center, located in Congressional District 18, where Congresswoman Lee served with dedication and distinction for over 30 years, would be a fitting tribute to her life and legacy. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was not only a prominent figure in our nation's capital, but also a tireless and advocate for the people of the District 18. Her unwavering commitment to our community was evident through her work in securing vital federal resources for our schools, advocating for equitable access to education, and supporting initiatives that uplifted our most vulnerable populations. Congresswoman Lee worked closely with local leaders, educators, and organizations to ensure that every child in our district had access to quality education and an opportunity to thrive. Throughout her career, Congresswoman Lee was a staunch supporter of Spring ISD. She championed initiatives that provided our district with essential funding, resources, and opportunities for our students and our families. Her advocacy helped address the unique needs of our community, particularly in the areas of family engagement and community support, which are critical to the success of our students. Naming the Family and Community Engagement Center after Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee would honor her enduring commitment to education and her impactful service to the people of our District 18. This designation would not only recognize her many contributions, but would also serve as a lasting reminder of her work and inspire future generations to continue her legacy of support and advocacy for our community. Thank you for considering this recommendation. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion so that we can move forward with discussion.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees rename the Spring ISD Family and Community Engagement Center to the Sheila Jackson Lee Family and Community Engagement Center. Is that-
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Trustee Adams and seconded by Trustee Carrera that the Board of Trustees rename the Spring ISD Family and Community Engagement Center. Is there any discussion at this time?
I just want to mention a couple of things that have affected me personally. In 14 years of being on the board, there has been one legislator who comes to our graduations to recognize kids, and it was Sheila Jackson Lee. The other thing that really stands out in my mind is during the COVID epidemic, I was at home like all of us were, and missing my family, and that was the longest year. I always predicted it to my biology students that there would be a pandemic, but I thought it might last a month. I had no idea what it was going to do to us. And Sheila Jackson Lee is the one who arranged vaccinations, some of the first vaccinations in our whole state at our stadium here in Spring. And the only reason why I got in is because somebody didn't show up. Trustees weren't on the first of the list. Believe me, our core people here who work were the first on the list. But I got in because somebody didn't show up. And I will be forever grateful that she, we didn't have to ask her to do that. She's the one who arranged that and made it happen.
Trustee Adams?
I have a couple of things. One, I concur with Dr. Jensen, a true servant of this community, who showed up for us consistently over the time I've been on the board. I had the pleasure of, when I was in Teach for America, her daughter was also a core member, and her husband was one of my practicum professors in law school.
Oh.
So the Lee family has had some impact on my life. Also want to point out that we have a naming policy in Spring. It's, if you care to reference it, it's CW Local. And I'm going to read how we name facilities in Spring ISD. The board shall appropriately name the various facilities within the district. The board shall name a new facility or change the name of an existing facility by majority vote with deference to the manner in which a facility or part therein has been named in the past. Methods, procedures, and processes for naming selection shall be determined by the board for each facility to be named or renamed. A facility may be named, 1, to honor an individual or family who is making out an outstanding contribution to the quality of life and quality of education in the district. 2, after the community or communities that are within the boundaries of the district. Or 3, after the purpose for which the facility is designed. It seems to me that Sheila Jackson Lee more than fulfills requirement number 1.
Thank you, Trustee Adams. So, anyone else? I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That motion carries unanimously that we will be renaming our Family and Community Engagement Center after the late and great Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Trustee Hodges, for bringing that to us. All righty. Our next item is board committees. And I will start first with the president's cohort. My initial intent was it actually got inspired. I was at an event where the choir at Spring High was having a barbecue fundraiser. And I took a photo with the president of the choir, and we talked a long time, and I thought it would be great if the board partnered with the presidents of our different groups and organizations and inspired them to continue their leadership and poured our knowledge into them. And so I had asked the district to put together a list of all of our presidents for our clubs, which they won't start voting until school starts back. So we don't quite yet know who those students are. However, it was over 600. Did you guys know that? In our middle and our high school, we have over 600 clubs and organizations. So what I'm thinking is, as I reevaluate that, that we kind of focus on just high school and our core clubs and organizations. And so I would like to do that in collaboration with my colleagues. We all have experience as leaders, and I think we all have something to give. So I'd like to pull them together, and then each month, one of us will work with them, present to them, share our knowledge with them, and help them to be successful, as they move forward in their careers. So just wanted to give you an update. So once we get the final list of those students, I'm going to ask each of you to submit to me what you would want to pour into those students from a leadership perspective. And then we'll, I don't know, draw names on who's going to go first for which month. But I'm really excited about it and looking forward to instituting the president cohort of students. Any questions for me? All right. Thank you, guys. Our next committee that I'd like to represent is our audit committee. And that's me again. So I'd like to say that we have now made an offer and now have our independent auditor that reports to the, to the board. Yay! We did a national search and everything, interviewed quite a few, and I think as a body, we're real excited about who we have, and so we will bring more to you about that coming up soon. Our next item is the Board Governance Committee, and with the absence of Trustee Hodges, would someone else on the committee like to speak up? I know school hasn't started yet, so if you don't have an update at this time, that's understandable. No one? All right, thank you. The Board Equity Committee, do we have an update for that? Not at this time. Our Board Data Analytics Committee? Not.
We haven't met, so I don't have that kind of an update, but I think we got off to a really good start last year in the first half year, and I was so excited when questions we asked Dr. Paraso took and found that there really was a significant finding there. And I think we've got some really interesting things coming up, but our first meeting is going to be, I think we're just going to go have coffee somewhere, and we are going to talk about what we want to accomplish this year and who's going to do it and our timeline. All right.
So I look forward to our September meeting when everyone brings forward the agenda for their committee this year for approval by the entire body. So I thought about like leaving this off the agenda because school hasn't started yet, but I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity in the event you did have an update. All right, so our next item is consent agenda. So I will now entertain a motion to approve and adopt all of the items listed on our consent agenda.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve and adopt all of the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Correa and seconded by Trustee McDaniel that the Board of Trustees approve and adopt all of the items listed on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So the Board of Trustees will now recess this open session and convene in a closed meeting in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of the discussion in the closed meeting will take place after the board reconvenes in open session, and the time is now 8:36 p.m. reconvene and resume the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, and the time is now 10:44 p.m. We will now address the items discussed during closed session. Are there any motions? Let's do the land.
I move that, Madam President, I move that the board approve the contract as presented by the administration for the purchase of approximately 10.20 acres of real property located on Riley Fuzzle Road in Harris County, Texas, and to delegate authority to the superintendent or her designee to negotiate, execute, amend, finalize, and/or terminate any agreements and closing documents related to the purchase and to execute any additional documents related thereto as discussed in closed session.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Newhouse and seconded by trustee Adams. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. Are there any other motions?
Madam President, I move that the board approve the amendments to the superintendent's employment contract on the terms discussed in closed session effective August 13, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Adams and seconded by trustee Newhouse, by trustee McDaniel. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. Are there any other motions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I move that we adjourn for tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Newhouse and trustee Correa to adjourn tonight's meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Tonight's meeting adjourns at 10:46 p.m. Thank you, everybody.